The International Atomic Energy Agency has raised the alarms about the shelling that is taking place at the Russian-controlled Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine, saying the current situation poses a great risk and could lead to a nuclear disaster. Both Russia and Ukraine have accused each other of attacking the plant and of nuclear terrorism, with the IAEA urging utmost restraint around the site. The following report takes a look at what we know about the plant and the possible risks associated with fighting around the region.
Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is the largest plant in Europe and among the 10 largest in the world. It generates half of Ukraine's nuclear-derived power. The plant has a total capacity of about 6,000 megawatts, enough for about 4 million homes. It is located in the southern Ukrainian steppe, in the Dnieper River, some 550 kilometers southeast of Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, and about 525 kilometers south of Chernobyl, the site of the world's worst nuclear power plant accident in 1986. Currently, the plant is operated by Ukrainian staff, but Russian military units guard the facility. The Zaporizhzhia plant is also located about 200 kilometers from Crimea, which Russia annexed in 2014. The IAEA has been trying for months to send an inspection team to the nuclear plant, but it has not been successful.
At the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine,
Director General of the IAEA, Rafael Mariano Grossi, described the situation as completely out of control in an interview with the Associated Press last week. He also spoke with the UN Security Council about the situation.
based on the most recent information, IAEA experts have preliminary assessed that there is no immediate threat to nuclear safety as a result of the shelling or other military actions. However, this could change at any moment. We certainly can all agree that any nuclear catastrophe would be unacceptable, and therefore preventing it should be our overarching goal. I ask that both sides cooperate with the IAEA and allow for a mission to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to proceed as soon as possible.
Given the IAEA's warnings, the question is, could the plant explode? And if so, what would happen? According to experts, this is possible, but the likelihood of that taking place is not certain. But there are concerns about the shelling occurring around the facility, with the potential to damage critical infrastructure, including the reactors. In the immediate aftermath of an explosion, experts say we could likely see widespread evacuations caused by an invisible radioactive cloud. However, the impact of a leak in radiation would probably be felt for years to come. Rather than a reactor core explosion, experts are more concerned about damage to systems that cool the spent fuel pool and the reactors. This could lead to an uncontrolled heat buildup, a meltdown, and a fire that could release and spread radiation from the containment structures. Due to the plant's geographical location, a radiation release could hit any part of the European continent.
Joining me on World Now to discuss this is a global affairs analyst, Calvin Dark. Thank you so much for joining us on World Now. The facility and its surrounding area in central eastern Ukraine saw shelling last week, but Russia and Ukraine have been accusing each other over the attack. What's your reading of the military activities around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plants?
Well, I think that the overall message from this is that the invasion by Russia into Ukraine is far from over, as you know, we're in month 5, and that it's still a threat energy-wise and security-wise to Europe and everyone in the surrounding region. Now, when it comes to what Russia benefits from this and what Ukraine benefits. From a political propaganda standpoint, they both benefit. For Russia, this just reinforces for their domestic audiences how much they believe this special military operation is necessary. And I know that they'll play on Western and U.S. fears of some type of nuclear event, and they're hoping that Ukraine will be given more military support, which will give them an excuse to escalate this conflict. For the Ukraine, it also helps them propaganda-wise because the threat of a nuclear incident keeps the Ukraine conflict on the minds of people in Europe and the United States. As you know, it's not the headline news that it was 5 months ago, so it's in the Ukraine's interest for people to pay attention and to realize how serious the situation is.
But the scary military operations around the Zaporizhzhia power plant is something of concern. So how close was nuclear power plant attack to catastrophe?
Well, I think that remains to be seen. As I was looking into different reports, there's some people that are saying that there isn't this massive threat as we think about with Chernobyl in the 80s, and that it would be very limited. But I'm one of those people that believes that if you shell and have military exercises and attacks near a nuclear power plant, that can't be good. Either for the short term or the long term. So I think that it is definitely a real threat that Europe, the Ukraine, and even Russia should not even be getting near.
Well, the U.S. has called for a demilitarized zone to be established around the plant because of the threats it poses. But Russia's UN representative said demilitarization was not an option, suggesting that it would make the plant more vulnerable to provocations. What exactly would you rather suggest?
Well, I think that the demilitarized zone issue would help the safety around the plant, but it doesn't really help the ongoing issue. Remember, this is a conflict that I think 5 months ago people thought would have been resolved one way or the other. And so I believe that this is Russia's way for refusing a demilitarized zone as, continuing to pursue their military goals. And if the world stops paying attention, they just might continue to do that.
Well, it does appear Russia-Ukraine war continues to remain protracted, with both parties engaging in propaganda against each other. Do you even see them coming to a round table to resolve this crisis, once and for all?
Well, I hope so, but I think that I don't have that much faith in direct Ukraine-Russia negotiations to end or resolve this conflict. I think that Europe and the United States are going to have to take a stronger role, particularly as we get near fall and winter, when those energy threats become more apparent, particularly for Europeans.
Yeah, so looking at the latest development around, apart from this particular one we're looking at, the issue of Crimea between Russia and Ukraine. For instance, Russia sounded a warning last month that when ex-President Dmitry Medvedev threatened last month that any attack on Crimea by Ukraine will be considered deeply serious by Moscow, judging that the Judgment Day will instantly await. How serious do you consider this threat?
I think it's a very serious threat, and I think that if you just look and see what Putin and Russia have done over the last 5 months, you see that it's not just a bluff. But I also think, too, that, Russia sets these, lines in the sand, these red lines of don't cross, and then they cross them and do whatever they're going to do. So I don't think that obeying or paying attention to Russia, what it says about Crimea, is going to change what Russia is going to do. But I do think it reinforces that as it stands now, I don't think Putin is intimidated or deterred from continuing the invasion, the special military operation that he started 5 months ago.
This has generated a lot of impact, and reactions from international community, economic impact, and some other fears, across the globe. But then, how would you describe the reaction or the international community, how much they've reacted to this in terms of looking for how to resolve this crisis so that the world, all the African countries and some other smaller countries who are reeling from the impact of this war between Russia and Ukraine? How would you describe their interaction or their interference into this crisis so far?
Well, I think if you look at what's happening at the United Nations level, it's still very much on everyone's radar there, and there are a lot of powerful statements and strategies coming out of the UN of how to resolve this conflict. But the unfortunate thing is that this isn't the priority for a lot of Western powers, and particularly the United States, because people's attention spans are short. So I do think that a lot can be done. I do think that what's happening at the UN is a good start, but we all know that it's going to take the member states, particularly the Security Council states, to really do anything that's going to resolve this conflict. And right now, I mean, there could be things going on behind the scenes, but it doesn't seem to have that same momentum and enthusiasm that it had in March and April.
Well, we'll see how the whole thing eventually pan out, because we've been saying this over and over again, trying to see, looking forward to seeing the two countries coming to a roundtable and putting an end to this crisis once and for all. Global Affairs analyst Calvin Dark, thank you always for your keenness of insight.
Thank you.